Hello and welcome to my audio presentation. I'm just talking this morning about my books. My name is Laurie Smith, and this is October 15th, 2022. It's been a while since I've done any real talks about my books, and I did do a few back in the old days when I first published them and put those audios out as broadcasts on Blog Talk Radio and different places. And then I did a series on YouTube called Born in Hell. It's a video series. That's lengthy. It's like, I think there's 27 videos or something. It's a very lengthy video series talking about my books and about just about my story. And so, most people who listen to my stuff or read my books are interested in, for one reason or another, in child abuse prevention, or maybe they're survivors themselves of child abuse, or they just care about people, So it's kind of a set group of people that would be interested in reading my books or looking at my stuff. I've had a lot of support through the years. I started out writing A Life of Death, The Redemption, back in 2009. It was a blog I was writing on Blogger way back in the old days. And it was really a self-protection measure that I started writing that blog because I wanted the world to know what had happened to myself and my family. And it wasn't just about me. I mean, I was taking a big look at the whole picture of what had happened to my parents to cause them to be the way they were. And then I wanted to look at the damage done to our family. And I thought I'll start it out as a blog, so it's really written, the blog's written, turned into a book. And it's written from my eyes that are from about 13 years old, so that's where it starts. And, I just was writing this blog, and I had two people tell me that it should be published as a book. And I thought that was interesting because these two people don't know each other. And one is an author, they're both authors, and one is an author, a friend of mine, who I had just met previously to writing that blog. And another one was a friend who I'd known for many years and actually knew a little bit about my story from the past because I was in her band, Tammy Beam. And we grew up, we went to the same high school, but we didn't really connect there. But we connected after graduation, and she had a band going, and she wanted to, me and my friend Di, to actually join her in her band, because Di, my friend, had a drum set and I had a guitar, and I didn't play guitar, but we had another friend, Steve, play the guitar, and we just played a gig in the mountains, in the Sandia Mountains at Bella Vista, and it was great. I enjoyed it. It was fun. But she's a published author, and she had been writing for all her life, I think. She started writing when she was young, and she's a prolific writer, and she's written some really cool books. And she was telling me I should publish this book, and I'm like, well, okay, if you think I should publish it. I didn't really want to change the wording, and I knew because there is a lot of graphic material in these books that if I went through a publishing company, a real publishing company, they would want me to change it. And many times survivors want to tell their stories, but the powers that be at these publishing companies won't let them tell their real story because it's too harsh, it's too ugly. They have to keep it toned down, And I thought, no, I'm not doing that. I'm going to tell my story the way it is, because there's never going to be anything done to fix and to make a difference in the issue of child abuse unless we tell the truth about it. And so I thought, no, I'm going to just be honest. I'm not going to, overemphasize certain things. I'm not going to underemphasize anything. In doing that, I when I first wrote A Life of Death, The Redemption, I was writing that obviously as a blog. It turned into a book, and I finished it off, and we published it. But I didn't, at that time, had not dealt with the CSA child sexual abuse that I suffered. And I was not comfortable telling people I had been raped as a child. And it was just so uncomfortable for me to even say those words because I was still so wounded and hurting as a 44-year-old woman, and it was such a harsh situation. So I just put molested in the book. I just recently put these out as another version and another edition, I guess you would say. I changed the covers because the covers were originally done by someone at another not-for-profit organization, except for La Vida Juvies, which is the picture of myself and my friend Di. That one was my actual design, so I kept that one for that book. But the other two books, One Child Abuse Survivor to Another, The Journey, that one I designed. I never was really happy with the cover. And the Life of Death or Redemption, that one was done by another lady, so with my approval. But I thought I'm going to switch these up because they're just going to be ebooks. So I've got these on Lulu now, only Lulu. They're not going to be generated anywhere else. And it was never about money. It was never about trying to make a name for myself. Really, what I wanted to do was to be a voice out here for people whose voices who have been silenced, because I know so many people, so many children have been killed and murdered by abuse, flat out murdered. So many other adults who were abused as children end up taking their own lives. No one ever knows the truth about what they went through. And so many times, survivors of abuse of any type are their voices are silenced. They're muzzled. They're not allowed to say anything because the abusers are still living, possibly, maybe threaten their lives. There's many reasons why why people who've been abused do not come forward, and also the fear of the trouble that's going to cause it within the family unit, especially if it's a family situation. And so I know about all of this stuff, and I thought, I know about this stuff. Why am I not speaking out? That's basically where I was back in 2007. I started taking courses at Mount Royal University here in Calgary, International Community Development, and we were looking at the issues of, abuse against women and violence against women worldwide. And I thought, I know all about this. I should be doing something about this. So at the time, I had already started kind of getting involved. I was working and volunteering with a group, actually, CA and ILF, that worked with women in Afghanistan to help them to get an education. And I was doing all sorts of stuff like that, and also in my own community volunteering. And I thought, I need to be involved because I know all about this. I watched my mother be abused by my dad. I grew up abused. Why am I not speaking out? But it was also a protection measure because I allowed my abusive dad to come stay with me. And he was down in Arizona, and my sister had passed away in 2007. And by 2008, he was lonely down there, and he wanted to come up here to be with me and my other brother who was still living, and my other sister who was up here. None of us are from here. It's where I live now in Calgary, Alberta. It's the most bizarre situation. But anyway, he wanted to come up here, and he said, "Oh, it'll be great. We can Bible study together," because I had just, become a Christian, and I was so excited about it, so happy. And I had not dealt with the child abuse stuff at all. I hadn't dealt with any of it. And this is just prior to writing this blog. And when he came, when he it was just a pretense. Like he hadn't changed at all. And that little girl inside of me who was afraid of him and feared for my life, became very, very scared. I was actually, I was being good to him. I was trying to be really good to him. My sister was a witness, so that was good. And, he was just as abusive as he always was. It's just he was 80, so he couldn't beat me up anymore. And so, it was just this toxic garbage. And I thought, he could slit my throat in the middle of the night. My dad was mentally ill, psychotic, and I thought, he tried to kill me and my sister before, and I thought he could just kill me in the middle of the night. So I started writing this blog, and that's where this all started. And I knew that I had problems, and I knew that I had to deal with stuff that I had not dealt with. I just didn't want to, but I finally decided to go ahead and get help. And I thought, other people get help, why can't I get help? And I thought, I need help. So I started reaching out and started getting some help, and I'm really thankful that I did. At that point, I started a blog talk radio program called One Child Abuse Survivor to Another, One Child Abuse Survivor to Another, that's all it was called. And that one was just my healing journey. I just talked about all sorts of issues in a category type situation where, I was looking at what is child physical abuse and what I survived, and what is emotional abuse and what I knew about it. And, taking a look at professionals and what their information was. And it was very helpful for me because then after I got off work and I'd do that show in the morning, I'd come home at night and actually do the work on healing from this abuse. And it took me years to do it, but I made a lot of progress and started to feel better. And I realized, there are so many people out there hurting and struggling, and you know, they have no idea how they're going to do the next day. I know because I was there, and I thought, I need to share this, so I really got busy and was doing like 3, 4 shows per day, different types of shows, and I was volunteering and stuff at the same time, and it was wonderful. So then I started writing La Vida Juvies. That was the second book, and that one was a book about the teen years, and I wanted people to sort of get an idea of of the what the abuse had done to me and the choices that I made because of it, and because my role models were my drug addict siblings, and I just turned to drugs, and I had I'd been using drugs since I was little, since I was young, and it was sort of, it's just a look at my teen years, and I wanted people to sort of see myself and my attitude from that point, and that my friends were suffering. A lot of my friends were, growing up in sort of harsh situations as myself. Not, maybe not quite as bad, but some of them worse. And so I knew about abuse all of my life. I lived it. I breathed it. That my whole life was about abuse and violence, family violence, drug addiction, suicide, murder, and that was my world. And I knew about the heartaches and of domestic violence, watching my dad abuse my mother, and my mom fighting back in self-defense, and it was just horrible, horrible, horrible to grow up in that. And I thought, I need to, I want people to, well, I just want to be one more voice, is what it is. I wanted to be one more voice saying, you know what, this is wrong, and this needs to change, and we need to, all of us, get involved to make this place a better world for children. And I thought, what do I have that's better to do with my time than to get involved? And so that's what I did. And in the meantime, my husband was terminally ill, and he was a very sweet man, and I just loved him dearly. But he wasn't abused, so he couldn't really relate with me on that. But he saw the stuff that I was going through. He knew what I had been through, and he was just very supportive. He just allowed me to do my thing. He never tried to tell me what to do. He just let me do my thing, and he was there for me. And he was a huge part of my healing journey, and he just supported me all the way through. And he finally passed away and left me for heaven in August of 2018, August 4th. So, it's been a hard road, and I thought, I should redo these as ebooks. Forget the hardbacks; they're too expensive. And because by publishing them through Lulu, they have to get their cut, so it makes the book more expensive. And the money, I donated all the funds for these books that I ever made, which wasn't very much, but what I did, take in, I actually donated to not-for-profit. And so it was never about money. And so these books I really wanted them to be out there for people to read who are interested in child abuse prevention, or for other survivors, which they may trigger you. You have to be careful if you're listening to these, and if you're listening to any of my stuff and you're actually reading my books, because they can trigger survivors of abuse. So you have to know what's good for you to read. And there's an explicit warning placed on one child abuse survivor to another, the journey, because that's dealing with the CSA, child sexual abuse, incest that I suffered. And I wanted the truth to be known. I wanted the world to know it's not a game. It's not something that we should just keep pushing under the carpet. This is absolutely not okay, and it's horrific, and I'm going to keep speaking out against this as long as I live. This is incredibly wrong, and society wants to say that it's not, but it is. And so I put that out there as explicit as it was. I didn't overemphasize, like I said. I didn't underemphasize. I just told it like it was. And that book is not for children. It's just not. There's a lot of sexually explicit material in there. It's for an adult with a mature mind who can actually read it for what it is, which is the truth of an 8-year-old girl being raped and suffering terribly at the hands of her mother and her dad and her brother. And I wanted people to know that that was me. And I wanted the world to see that this happens in so many families. You just wouldn't even be able to understand how often this actually happens. unless it happened to you. Because then you start finding out there's so many people that have been abused and sexually abused as children. And so I wanted my voice to be out there really for all those people whose voices were silenced. And that's why I wrote these books. It was, I dedicated the A Life of Death or Redemption to all who have been abused, to my brothers as well. And, it's tragic that our society as a whole and the whole world just will not get help and will not stop hurting each other. And that's why I knew there was a difference between good and evil. And that's why I knew there was a difference between light and darkness. And, it was so in my face all the time growing up. Because, I witnessed it firsthand. What it is to be just daily barraged by abuse and violence and horrible, horrible stuff. So, I wanted the people to know the truth. And so I just wrote the truth. And I just, have been speaking the truth ever since. And so that's why I've done this. It was really a motivation to just be one more voice out here and to be a witness and a testimony for people, that there is life after abuse. You can do it. You have to get help, though. If you can't do it on your own, you have to reach out and get help. And not to suffer on your own and not to suffer in silence. It's such a horrible place to be. And we need to keep reaching out for help, right? If we can't cope, and because for whatever reason, we need to get help. And people who are abusing children need to stop abusing children. This is a mess, right? So it's going to take all of our voices, and that's what I realized. Way back there in 2007 when I started, especially that International Community Development Program. That was amazing, and it was like, it's going to take all of our voices to change this world. If we don't like what we see, then we need to stand up and say something, and stand up for what's right. And I always basically just did that because I used to try to protect my mother from my dad, and which got me beatings and put me on the outs with my dad for sure. And my dad was abusing me before that, but I was determined that I would try to protect my mother like my brothers had done before me. And I was just a little girl, and I was willing to stand up and try to get him away from her, which there was other people in my family that wouldn't do that. They didn't care. They were just like, whatever, she's getting hers. And I can't be okay with that. I can't be okay with that attitude of, but yeah, my mom was my main abuser. But did that mean that was okay? That what my dad was doing to her was okay because she was my main abuser? So I should just say, oh, well, that's what she deserves? No. That's not right. That's why this world is such a mess. Because people will not look at what is right and what is wrong and stand up for what's right and shout out against what's wrong. It was wrong what my mother was doing to me, for sure, and had been since birth, which was just rejecting me, physically abusing me, psychologically abusing me, neglecting me, and being a horrible, horrible person to me. But the thing is that what my dad was doing to her was wrong. He was raping her and beating on her and just treating her so horribly. And, and I thought that it was right to stand up for her. And, I used to stand up for my friends, too. And I had friends stand up for me. It's the right thing to do, to stand up against evil and to stand up against the darkness. Even if you're standing up on your own, it's the right thing to do. And I will always do that. So, these books are important to me. I'm getting older now, I've done so much talking. I've done like probably 2,000 plus shows, like over the years of, half hour, 45-minute, hour talks. And that's a lot of time put into that. I think people are tired of listening to my voice. I've said what I needed to say over the years. I've said more than I needed to say, some people might say, but I said really what I wanted to say, and I'm kind of, sort of done on that issue. I'm almost 60 years old. I will be in a few years. I don't know if I'm going to make it. My health has not been good, and I've got some health issues going on. And I'm kind of, I give every day up to God, and I am a very spiritual person. I just give every day up to God. It's up to God whether I will live or whether I will go home to be with Him. But the issue is that I thought about it and I thought, I've only got so much time left and what do I want to do? So I thought, I am kind of cleaning things up and straightening things up in my life. And I thought I'm going to put these books out here for free. I don't, like they are on the Lulu site for $2 or something. But if because I'll end up making $1 from that. Lulu gets $1, I'll get $1, but that money will be still donated to not-for-profit. But the thing is that I thought I want people to be able to read these books if they really want to, and they shouldn't have to pay for them. It was never about the money. I've actually given these books away quite a bit to people who contact me and say, "I'd really like to read your story, but I don't have any money." I'd be like, "Well, yeah, I'll just send you the PDFs. It's no big deal. I don't care. It's not about the money, right? If you're interested in my story, please feel free to read it." I don't have very many people contact me about my work. I don't know. It's just hasn't been all that effectual or whatever, but I certainly wanted it to be, and that's why I did this. I thought my story was important. Most of all, I thought my brother's story was important, and I still do. I know years ago when I first moved to Canada, to Calgary, my sister and I were talking about, my sister's closest in age to me. We don't talk anymore, but when we were talking about actually seeing if we could get a foundation set up here in Calgary for, kind of geared towards the homeless with mental illness problems, drug addiction, and stuff like that. We wanted to have a park bench dedicated to two of our brothers who took their own lives here in Calgary, where I live now. So, two of my brothers committed suicide. So, and I grew up with that. I saw the abuse that they suffered. I was a witness. I used to tell my dad not to do what he was doing to them, and, I'd get beaten on, and, it was always right in my mind to speak out against abuse, whether you get beat on or not. So that's what I do. And it was whether it's popular or not, I don't care. I'm just, God gave me a sense of duty to first of all stand up and say what's wrong is wrong, what's right is right, and also a bit of a backbone, because I don't over assert my backbone, but I've got one. If I need to use it, I will. I'll stand up, and I don't quite often because I'm not a pushy person, but sometimes I do, surprise people, and it throws them off a bit because they're like, "Wow, gee, what did I do?" But the thing is I will always stand up for what's right, and I will always speak out against what's wrong, and I'll always protect myself too. So that's very important. It's very important to me as a survivor of abuse to protect myself. And but I just give it up to God. I really do. So these books, they'll be on the archive site for free. I'm also going to link them to my Board in Hell website and as PDF downloads. If you're under the age of 18 and I guess 18 and under, if you're not considered to be an adult, then you need to not read One Child Abuse Survivor to Another: The Journey. You need to have an adult give you permission to read that book, whether it's a parental figure or a teacher or somebody, because that is an adult book with explicit sexual information in it, not for children. The other two are fine to read. There's a little bit of cursing and stuff in there, but a lot of violence and stuff like that. Young children would not understand. These are adult books for adult people to read, or young adults, right? So they're not children's books. That's the harsh reality, is that, I didn't want to tone it down to make it appropriate for 5-year-olds. It's not appropriate for a 5-year-old. These are adult themes, and it's for adults. So, if you're young, you need to have somebody read the book first and make sure it's age appropriate for you. Because if I'm going to put a warning on my thing saying that if you do download it, you're doing it with the knowledge that it is your responsibility. And, you're choosing to download these books and read them. That takes the responsibility off my shoulders, because they are explicit, and especially the One Child Abuse Survivor to Another, The Journey. So then that's why I didn't publish them under, Random House or something like that, because, I wanted the truth to be out there, and it is the truth. And truth is harsh sometimes, and it's horrible sometimes, but it's necessary if we're going to make change. So many times you hear survivor stories, and they can't really tell the truth, and so just like I did when I first wrote A Life of Death Redemption, I wrote in there, that I had been molested because I couldn't say the word rape. I couldn't even acknowledge that, how could that even happen to me? I didn't even want to look at it. I didn't want to acknowledge it, you know. But I thought, if I'm going to heal, I need to do this. I need to actually call it what it is. So it's the only thing I changed in those books, where in A Life of Death or Redemption, I just added to the title, which originally it was A True Story of Growing Up Abused. And I changed the word molestation to rape, because that's what it was, child rape. And I changed the word that I had been uh, molested again in another section to child sexually abused, because I want people to realize this is not a game. It's not okay. Children need to be taught about their bodies, and they need to be taught about my body. My body is not is my body, and I can say no. I can say no, and I have the right to tell, if someone's trying to do something to me. You need to teach your children about their own bodies and about how to be safe, right? To stop and prevent a lot of child abuse. And you need to know that child abuse happens mostly in families, because that's wherever the child is. So it happens also in schools. People that are supposed to be trustworthy with your children, families, schools, places, wherever the child is, that's where the abuse is going to happen. So, babysitters, you got to be thinking about this stuff. Camps, camp counselors, anywhere where a child is, right? That's where the abuse can happen. And you better know who's around your children at all times. And you better be protecting them if you're a parent. So, I just wanted to come on, do a little talk. That's all. I'm going to keep it very short. But the links are there. You can download them. You have permission to download them, share them around. And, if you would like to read them, that's fine. And I just hope that the body of my work, all of the audios, the books, the video work that I've done will hopefully help somebody out there, who's struggling, just to know that you didn't deserve that, and you deserve so much better. We all did as children, right? We just wanted love, and we just wanted care. And it's hard as an adult to go through life then trying to put back the pieces of this broken glass. It's always going to be fractured. It's always going to be broken. But we can still do life, and this is why I wanted the body of my work, to make a difference, and that people would see that there is life after abuse. You can enjoy yourself. You can open up. You can learn to trust, just as you want people to trust you. You can learn to trust. And it's hard. You have to set boundaries, and you have to know what those boundaries are in your life that that you need to protect yourself, so that you're not re-victimized as a survivor of abuse. But you just need to realize that there's good people out there. There is good help, but there's good people out there that do care, right? So, with that said, I wish you all the best. I thank everybody who's ever supported my work. I thank all the people from my past, if they're listening to this, who helped me out when I was young and really didn't have a hope in hell for survival. And these people reached my heart, and they told me to keep going. And as a youth, as a very young person, and I'll never forget them. And they are the reason I'm still here today. And then I had so many wonderful friends come along after I started my work here on my healing journey, and I had so many people reach out their hands to me and try to pull me along and say, you can do this. And I really appreciate everything that they did for me. Every little thing. I appreciate all of those people so much. And so if you're listening and you're one of those people, that I love you very much. And I just, I couldn't have done it without you, so it wouldn't have been possible. So thank you so much to everybody who's ever helped me to get through this. And I just wish you all the best. God bless you. God keep you in the palm of his hand. Take good care.